Hi, Dennis Weiss, Eagle Communications. Welcome to our town. We're being graciously loaned the facility by the Community Foundation in Dickinson County this morning. I have Senator Randall Hardy in the not hot seat, but pretty cool seat this morning outside.
It's very nice out.
We're in Kansas, and so the weather's doing this in the spring, and I'm loving both ways. The spring is good for me. How about you?
I put in a request that yesterday's weather can be the rest of the year weather.
It was fantastic.
It'd be
yesterday.
nice.
Okay, but so economic report before we get to question and answer. I drove up from Wichita last night. Boy, the wheat looks good. Anytime the wheat looks good this time in Kansas gives us hope for economic good things in the fall.
I'm hopeful that we'll get a good report. We're going to get our consensus revenue report any day now.
Okay.
And that will take us forward. That will be the number that we use to determine what our budget will be for this next fiscal year. And if it's anything like the estimates that we've been getting the last several months, it ought to be positive.
That's great. Well, the reason we have you here is because you're in a break.
Correct.
And you start back up May 1st?
That's correct as well.
Okay.
We adjourned on April the 5th. And that is called first adjournment, and then we're gone for 3 weeks, and in part because of this revenue estimate that comes out in April that's critical to the way that we put our budget together. And so it gives me an opportunity to do some yard work at home, but also to do things like this during that 3-week period of time, so that I feel like it's important for me to be engaged with the people in the 24th district.
So as a voter who had the pleasure of voting for you, I think it is important to be engaged. And this break in between, we look at the Kansas legislature, we see a lot of work done.
Right.
We see a little posturing done. We see everybody now building up to things have to happen in this little wrap-up session. And
Correct.
we, the public, see this, so we know this. So it's what a wonderful time it is for you to be able to stand in front of the camera and talk about what's going on and where we're headed and all those things.
Yeah, there's going to be quite a few bills that we will be working on after we go back on May 1st. That last part is typically called the veto session.
Right.
But last several years it hasn't worked out that way. It's just been like legislative session part 2.
Right.
And so we'll continue passing bills and sending them to the governor. I think that we had a slow start to the session this year, and I wasn't very optimistic about what could happen, but towards the second half of the session, things picked up and we were able to accomplish quite a bit.
So probably the number one bill sitting in front of you is what the House sent over on education?
Education, well, we actually had 2 bills.
Okay.
We had a Senate bill and then there was a House bill.
Right.
And so we had to take those bills, and then we had to iron out the differences, and the final product is called a conference committee report.
All right.
And what happened was we took some of the policy from the House position, but we included the money from the Senate position.
All right.
Which is roughly $92 million a year for the next 4 years to take care of the inflation factor that puts us back on track with education funding, and hopefully we don't have to worry about it again.
You think that's going to work?
You know what? I think I'm optimistic, and I was really pretty adamant about this number because it was the number that the Supreme Court alluded to as satisfying Gannon, which was the lawsuit that precipitated this whole mess back in 2006. And that was the last time that they agreed that education was being adequately funded. And now we know that the funding that we are providing equals that funding. And so we are fairly confident that the Supreme Court will say adequacy is being met now. And that would get them out of the school funding business. Because if we're adequately funding our schools, then there's no real reason for lawsuits to be brought back. And the only reason that the Supreme Court ever got into the business to begin with was because of the lawsuit.
Right. So I think all of this no matter which side of the school funding issue, either you are as a legislator or we are as in the public, it cannot be a great day when our highly esteemed Supreme Court, which they are, they're nice people, they're good people, are involved in school funding.
Right.
Now, school fairness, school access, things that are constitutionally based, but you know the reason that it's in front of the Supreme Court's that adequacy word.
Correct.
That's in our Constitution.
Correct.
And that has been turned into a number coming out of the Supreme Court as funding adequacy.
Correct.
This guy, it's a bridge too far, but I know how we got here. We have to work our way back and keep schools doing what schools need to do. That's what you're doing. Mr. Barker is involved as well.
Correct.
All of those things are what's going on up in Topeka.
Right. And I think that, to me, the most important thing is that children in Kansas get a great education.
Agreed.
That was one of the reasons that I came to Kansas. As opposed to some other state, is because I kept hearing how great the education system was. And it's one thing that people in the state of Kansas value. They value good roads. They value, so it's just something that I feel like is a high priority and that we take care of it.
So I never make it through this show without saying economic revitalization, and I think you just lured yourself into my trap. So I didn't realize that you came to Kansas. I thought you were in Kansas. I met you at Construction Rental Inc. years ago. So, but you just told us one of the reasons why you came to Kansas, and that is a vital portion of our economic prosperity bait that we put out into the world. So tell the story.
Well, I was born in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
But I've been in Kansas since 1974. I have a graduate degree from University of Kansas.
Okay.
And moved to Salina because of a family business.
All right.
That my wife, it was her family that was involved in it. You mentioned the name of it, Construction Rental. I was the president of Construction Rental for 25 years.
Great business, still great business
Oh,
today.
it is. I loved it. I loved every day. I look forward to going to work every day. And I got out of that business in 2012. Then I was elected to ran for the city commission in Salina in 2013. I had two-year terms there, and then when I started hearing some things that were going on in this state and seeing the financial situation, and I said, you know what, we're not in a very good situation, and I said, I don't know if I can win, but I have to try. And so I put my name in the hat and knocked on 4,000 doors, lost 10 pounds.
Yeah, I'll bet.
And here I am.
I need to lose 10 pounds, but I'm not knocking on 4,000 doors to do it. No.
I know.
I might knock on one, Impact Sports and Fitness over across the street over here.
There you go. That's one unintended consequence that was actually positive.
Okay. So thank you for always being transparent. You've always been accessible to us and others. I've watched people walk up and ask you questions. You participated in a town hall here, 2 weeks ago now?
Correct.
Been 2 weeks ago? Representative Barker, yourself, and Congressman Marshall all talked and answered a widest range of questions I've ever seen at a local town hall.
I loved it.
Well, that tells me that the public is informed on a wide range of issues, and they're willing to ask people about it. I think that's positive. Doesn't matter that it's a little tense, right? It's positive.
Right. I think that some people think that we're not communicating well, and that there may be some of that going on in Washington, but at least in Topeka, I feel like we don't need to disagree less. I think we need to disagree better.
Well said.
And I think that once you do that, because I don't want everybody to think like me. It's me plus everybody else, where somewhere in there you come to a good solution for the state of Kansas and Dickinson County.
So if everybody thought alike, we wouldn't need everybody.
Exactly.
We only need one guy to tell us what to do. Right?
Exactly.
So it's the beauty, it is the reflective beauty of our representative republic and our democracy that people are in different positions. That's how we can coexist. The thing that breaks it all is when disagreement turns past gentlemen disagreement. And conflict starts to get to the point where people are violent to each other. That is what set America apart. And that's why we're still America, is we've been able to peacefully resolve all situations before the body politic.
Exactly.
Unique in the world.
We need to be able to see the people across the aisle as opponents, not as enemies.
Correct. Well said. So I wanted to ask you, so what does a senator do when you go up to Topeka, and especially the things that concern Dickinson County? But you know, I've long been convinced that on TV, anything that has a number attached to it sounds like Charlie Brown language, blah, 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 blah. But people do care about issues. People care about the things that affect them. So I'm sure there has to be some Dickinson County items that are important and opportunities. And maybe when you say one I'm interested in, I'll ask you a follow-up.
Very good.
All right.
Well, and people may or may not know that the 24th Senate District includes all of Saline County, and then the northern half of Dickinson County at 1900th Avenue. That is the dividing line between my district and Senator Rick Wilborn's district, who has the southern half of Dickinson County. And there were roughly 71,000 people in every Senate district.
Okay.
And this is my third year, and I think it's a great job. I've had a blast.
Good.
But one thing that's made it really fun for me is being able to work with people in Chapman, Enterprise, Solomon, and of course Abilene, in Dickinson County, territory that's fairly new to me. But I love it. I really have had a great time. And one thing that I do is that I listen. As you said, when somebody has an idea, they bring it up to me, and I say, well, that sounds like it. I could get this through the legislature, or at least give it a shot. And that's happened. There are several bills that have Dickinson County fingerprints on them.
Okay.
One of them is a Rural Opportunity Zone bill. The senator that represents Crawford County came up to me early in the session and said, say, I want to get Crawford County included as a Rural Opportunity Zone county. Would you be interested in co-sponsoring the bill with me? And I said, well, if you'll put Dickinson County in, I will. And so he did, and that bill has made it all the way through, and we're this close to the governor's signature. And it's a great thing. It'll bring, it will encourage people to move back to Dickinson County. It does two things. It'll help people with their student loans. They'll have $15,000 of their loan forgiven. And it will give them a 5-year holiday from paying state taxes if they come back and live here for 5 years.
Do you know off the top of your head how many counties that will include should the bill go through?
Well, it was 77 counties, and now it'll make it 83.
Okay.
So it includes an awful lot of counties. And but I think Dickinson County belongs. I did not request Saline County because it did not fit the qualifications. You have to
kind of common sense, isn't it,
well,
Senator? So I mean, as 83 out of 105, that means the metro counties aren't in there.
Correct.
It's a rural opportunities.
Right. Correct.
And so, in your view, it's a rural list.
This is, and it included the smaller counties. They wanted counties that had populations of less than 10,000. Well, that's what eliminated Dickinson County in the past. Well, I decided to stretch it a little bit, or at least throw it out there and see what happens.
So it's interesting, and I'm a broadband guy, you're well aware, so the federal classification of all of that, as we go through looking at all these federal programs, Dickinson County is clearly rural in all of that. In fact, probably it's pretty close to the 85 list in Kansas and counties that are rural and designated as such under those federal programs for that. So it makes sense to me, and I can tell you a couple of things. I was wild about that Rural Opportunities bill when it was originally passed. And we have some boundary counties in the Eagle Communication Territory, and I watched the good news happen in some of those and talked to those people and said, is this going to make a difference for you? They said, we think so, we're excited about it. Then I've had a chance to say, did it make some difference for you? And there's some yes answers. It may be 1 or 2 people or 4 or 5 couples, but that's how rural grows.
Exactly.
That's the win.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm excited about that. There's another bill, and you may have some interest in this one too. It was a 911 bill where our 911 system is being upgraded, and additional funding was required in order to do that, because when you dial 911 on your cell phone, you want people to know where you are, and that's a challenging situation. And so the funding for this program then would take the 911 system to the next level.
Really has to if we're going to have a 911 system.
Exactly.
I don't know what the numbers are, but it's a vast majority of phone calls from people, not businesses, are made from cell phones.
Correct.
And in a mobile society in which everybody knows we live, both parents driving every day, most of the time to somewhere, if you're going to place a 911 call, there's nearly a certainty it's going to be from a mobile phone.
Exactly.
And if you can't geolocate that mobile phone, you no longer have a 911 system, really. You just have a call to an operator.
All right. And so I was working with the Emergency Management Office here in Abilene on that bill. And what happened was they had requested $1.03 added to the monthly cellular phone bills to take care of that. Currently they get 60 cents, and so it was quite a sizable bump to $1.03. But that was what they considered to be necessary in order to complete the program. And the House, the bill was reduced to 82 cents. And when the bill came over to the Senate, I'm on the Utilities Committee, I offered an amendment to take it back up to $1.03. And then, as a compromise in committee, we settled at 90 cents. So, there you go.
Let me venture in. Is that all right?
Okay.
Thanks for saying okay. It's not like you had a choice.
Oh, well.
Oh, well. But that's almost a user fee. If we want to use these cell phones, we want 911 to be answered. Isn't that pretty good way to pay for it? It's by the user of the service itself. But
there was always consternation about how much.
Yeah, well, always is, and who wants to pay more? But I do want 911 to know where I'm at if I call on a cell phone.
And the part that kind of gets to me is the split the difference attitude in Topeka, and because a lot of people do pad bills. When they bring them to us knowing that, well, we're never going to get that, so we'll just hopefully, if we get half of it, we'll be happy, kind of thing. Well, the same thing was being done here, but I do know that the study that was done, the $1.03 was lean. There was no fat attached to that number, and so that's why I wanted to get that number, if at all possible. And 90 cents was better than 82 cents, so I said, well, I'll support anything.
All of us will be prospered by E911.
Exactly, exactly. There's some other bills, though. There's an Eisenhower statue that now sits on the State House grounds.
Yes.
And Senator Elaine Bowers from Concordia asked me to co-sponsor the bill with her that was called enabling legislation to include that statue on the grounds. You just can't decide to do that. Everything requires a bill.
Sure.
And so that bill passed the legislature and was actually the very first bill that Governor Collier signed. And he signed it at the Presidential Library.
Tell me it was unanimous.
I think it was unanimous. I think I would have remembered if it wasn't.
I would think so. So we here in the home of Dwight David Eisenhower, those sorts of follow-up questions spring to mind. Some very positive things happen over in that part of town. I'm pointing towards the Eisenhower Presidential Library, Museum and Boyhood Home. Every year, 185 to 200,000 people come in. 75th year anniversary of D-Day this year. Big celebration planned and going to happen. Museum is under renovation, was planned to be done. We'll find out next week on camera just how close that is, but a little shutdown of the federal government took a little steam out of the sail there. But what a place to have in Abilene, Kansas. But may I say, what a place to have in Kansas. Could have been in Pennsylvania,
Exactly.
So what a benefit to our state that it sits here in Abilene, just off I-70, between the metro centers of Manhattan and Salina. What a great thing.
And
a statue
and I have a bill for that.
There you go. Tell me about it.
That bill was an income tax credit bill that would benefit the Eisenhower Foundation, which funds the operation of the library and the museum. And I've had 2 tries at it.
Okay.
And we've come really, really close both times. And in fact, this time I thought things were going to happen, but things didn't happen quickly at all this session. And so we got the bill out of committee, and what the bill would do is it would provide a state income tax credit for people up to 50% of their contribution.
Sure.
And there's a limit, I think it's $25,000, I think it was. If you contributed to the foundation, half of that would be given to the foundation, and then half would go to state revenue.
Probably coincidentally or by accident, I happen to be involved with a lot of foundations, of which we're setting in one, right? So you get to know a little bit how this operates. That tax credit plan in the state of Kansas is so critical to the prosperity of the foundations that make so many things happen around us.
Exactly.
It's a very important tool in their fundraising opportunity.
Exactly. Before I forget, too, I have to get a shout out to Representative Barker and Senator Wilborn, who both work. I can't work on the House side. I can only work on the Senate side.
Our legislative team,
it takes a team. It really does. And Representative Barker is very helpful on the House side with anything that happens on the Senate side. So I appreciate that.
Okay. You got more on your list.
Well, I do. But you know, the thing that surprised me a little bit was in 2018, I added up, keep track of my mileage. I was over in Abilene.
The IRS likes that,
or Dickinson County, 28 times.
Yeah, good.
And
I think I saw you 27. So
right. And so that tells you that it's a priority for me.
That's good.
I'm a senator that represents not just Saline County, Dickinson County as well. Even though I don't live here, I feel like I have some sort of presence here. I even have I Like Ike on the back of my car.
That's perfect.
And
that's perfect.
so, you know,
$50 is $50, man.
Exactly.
So we'll take it.
Exactly. So I want people to know what my commitment is to Dickinson County. I've visited the schools. I visited the city councils and commissions to talk about priorities. I visited with the county commission to talk about priorities. Visited the school superintendents, the different school buildings to read to kids. You know, I just want to know what's going on in a building, and that's the way you get to know those sorts of things.
So this is a question for Barker, but he's not here. That you're my guy too. When I go in the vote booth, I see your name.
Yeah.
All right. So in a state that has a state lottery, a state casino, and watching Florida shut down greyhound racing, probably the largest dangling economic opportunity for Abilene, Kansas, where the National Greyhound Foundation resides, registry and foundation resides, is an opportunity to grow our greyhound racing back into Kansas again. And there's a simple obstacle there, and it's called giving a fair and equal opportunity for racetracks to do the same thing that casinos do at the exact same rate of pay. Why in the world can we not get that through? I know Barker's carried it numerous times, but what stops that bill in the state of Kansas?
The only thing that I know about, it happened many years ago, and that is there was a contract. The state agreed to a contract with the casinos about how much money the casinos could keep,
right?
And
22%,
right? And it made a hardship for the Greyhound people to be successful without having the same opportunity that the casinos have.
Right.
And I don't know if we can do that. I've been told that the best thing we can do is wait the 10 years till the contract is up and renegotiate at that point. That would be the best shot. And
well,
also,
that would be the best shot for our contract with the casinos, but it wouldn't be the best shot for greyhound racing because it won't be here 10 years from now.
Well, but you know, there's something else that's happening, and you're right. Florida has voted the industry out of that particular state, but it didn't kill the industry.
Right.
And but what I think there's other opportunity. You know, we're in Kansas thinking about online sports gaming.
That bill was up too, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And so I think that if we provide opportunity, that may provide the opportunity for at least the people in Kansas and for the people in the dog industry to provide their business all over the country.
Sure. If it's online and that's the way we have to do it, I'll be glad to sell somebody a broadband connection to
There you go.
to a Greyhound track in Dickinson County.
I know, and I'm scheduled to go out to the meet on Friday morning.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So Dave did the two fingers about 2.5 minutes ago, so I know he's watching the clock run down. Randall Hardy, Senator Randall Hardy, thanks for coming. Thanks for being open and honest and free to talk about the things that go on in Topeka and what you've done for our area. I appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome. And even when I'm not in session, as my office assistant walks out the door, she forwards my office phone to my cell phone.
Okay, very good.
And so you can catch me 24/7.
There you go. All right, Senator Randall Hardy was happy to sit with you today, and I was glad to have him here as well. My name is Dennis Weiss. I work for Eagle Communications. We wish you a terrific day.